He's the nut behind the wheel and behind the mic. This is Automotive ADHD with Matt West.
And you have tuned into the bonus edition of the Automotive ADHD show. Matt West here, and if you just joined me off of the radio show, I ran myself out of time talking about lawnmowers, of all things. So that's why we're here on the bonus edition of the show. I want to talk a little bit about some new car buying. I won't call it advice, but we're going to call it an analysis of the new car market. You know, it's kind of rare when I talk about new cars on this show because if you look behind me, I've got the crusty, rusty Corolla sitting back there, and I like the older cars. But, you know, at one point, any old car, all the old cars us gearheads like wrenching on, was a new car, for better or for worse. But if we take a look at what's going on here, we now have the Q2 results of all of the new car sales for 2024. And it's painting an interesting picture when we look at that. And I have to give a hat tip to Caleb Miller from Car and Driver for putting these statistics together. And we saw some sales that maybe made sense, and we saw some things that maybe didn't make nearly as much sense, or at least on the surface level. And for example, EVs, they're not all big, but certain ones are, and I will tell you why. But first, you know, a very obvious one that we all saw coming, mid-size trucks. Mid-size trucks are absolutely, I think, outrageous in the terms of sales and how many people are buying them. I am guilty as charged. I have a Toyota Tacoma as my daily driver. I like mid-size trucks. You know, they're not small trucks. Very few manufacturers are actually doing the small truck thing. Ford is doing that with the Ford Maverick right now. Toyota does that in other markets, not here in the United States. Come on, Toyota, what are you doing? But again, you know, Toyota can do no wrong. So, but some of the things that we've seen with mid-sized trucks, and they're practical. I like them. The Chevy Colorado / GMC Canyon, which are basically the same truck, they had in Q2, 26,901 sales between the two vehicles. And that represented a 35% bump compared to the same time last year. And that, or rather, I should say that is just the Chevy Colorado at a 35% improvement. The GMC Canyon, meanwhile, buyers are going up market with the Canyon. They want the fancier options. 69%, nice improvement over last year. And I think the mid-sized truck market's very hot. It's very hot. And you know what's happening is Dodge is, I think, missing out on the mid-sized truck market. Yeah. You could say, I can hear you typing. Well, they're part of Stellantis, and they've got the Jeep Gladiator, which is a mid-sized truck, and it's a fun mid-sized truck, and the doors come off, and the roof comes off, and the windshield folds down. All the cool stuff you want about a Jeep, but in truck form, just like the old CJ8 Scrambler of yesteryear. And I personally love them. I think they're great. As also an owner of a Jeep, not a new one, I'll tell you, though. It's very old, but and it was also $800. But anyway, so they have that. But the thing is, I think a lot of buyers are actually kind of put off by the Gladiator's kind of roughness, the ruggedness, the solid front and rear axles together. You know, I think a lot of your mid-sized truck buyers are getting into Chevy Colorados and Toyota Tacomas and really going for that because they bring a little bit of luxury still. You don't feel like you're driving a Jeep, which I like driving Jeeps, don't get me wrong. But you look at your standard mid-sized truck buyer, and a lot of them don't want that. If they wanted that, they would have gone and bought a Jeep. And Stellantis' sales figures, by the way, are exemplary of this, you could say. And we'll get more into why I think Dodge should bring back the Dakota, perhaps, as a mid-sized truck within the Ram lineup rather than the Jeep lineup. But here we go. Let's take a look at Stellantis, because, man, they are hurting. They are not doing well. I'm going to tell you that much. Stellantis is down overall across the board. And Jeep sales dropped 19%. The only models, and that's overall, the only models in the lineup that saw growth was the Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer. Ram, they were down 26% overall. Chrysler saw another 19% dip in sales. And Dodge, I mean, Dodge also fell, 17%, I should say. And you could attribute that partly to the fact that they are canning the current Charger and Challenger to replace those with a new model going forward. We've seen the new Charger. We've seen the EV concept. We know it's going to have a straight 6 hybrid. There's going to be an EV only one. None of that's on the market right now. So part of that is that. I mean, you're phasing out a model before you're bringing in a new one. You are going to see a decline, especially when people want to buy that model. And don't get me started. This is not what this bonus show is about here, but I don't think that, the new Charger, the new one, really counts in terms of what buyers want. Buyers want rear-wheel drive, V8, manual transmission, maybe, at least the buyers of this, right? We got to categorize each of these models into the sort of person, the sort of demographic that buys them. And I think a lot of people still want that V8 Charger and Challenger. They still really want that. And we'll get into why Ford is being so successful with that same formula. But a couple other statistics here for Stellantis, the whole umbrella, the Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Fiat, Alfa. Can't forget about those two, the Italian ones. And Fiat. Oh, man. 316 units. Whopping. Tremendous sales success. Fiat. That's not one model, by the way, in the lineup. That's Fiat as a whole in quarter two. 316. When we're talking about other cars, like even the Toyota Highlander, which we'll get to Toyota too in a minute, but Toyota was 51% last year compared to last year, and that was still like 18,000 units sold. Fiat, 316. Now, Alfa did a little bit better. 2,492 sales. And, that's probably because Alphas are a little more luxury. They're a little more upmarket. People are not wanting to pay. Look, if you are wanting to pay for Italian unreliability, you at least want it to be nice and stylish, which is Alfa. Fiat, not so much. I mean, they're the same thing, but not so much, just because it doesn't have that upmarket feel to it. So, Stellantis is losing really hard. They really are. And we can see, too, with Ram. Ram is down 26%. Full-size pickup trucks are down across the board as well, in favor, again, of those mid-sized trucks I was talking about earlier. Because, look, and especially with like a 1500, for example, why would I want to drive around a big truck? Doesn't really have all that much payload capacity when you think about it. And when you get into like a 2500 or a 3500, in my opinion, they don't really drive all that different. Yes, they do. I know people are going to say, yeah, they do. But I mean, at the end of the day, the body of the truck, it still feels like a big truck. If I want to drive around in something that feels like a big truck with all the inconvenience of a big truck, I think I would be more willing to go spend a few more dollars and get that 2500, get that payload, get that towing capacity, and it still feels like a big truck. That's my opinion. The regular, your 1500 sort of range, either they're not doing well sales-wise, and people are either buying the 2500s, 3500s if they actually have work to do, or they're going if they don't. If they don't have a job to do with the truck, I'm being a little facetious here, but if it's a lifestyle truck, it's a plaything, like my Tacoma, even though my Tacoma doesn't do too bad trailering the S2000 on a trailer. I've got a flatbed, open aluminum car hauler. It does great with that. I love it. I had to change the leaf springs in the rear to make it a little more accommodating of that, but overall, it does a good job for my needs and for most people's needs. So I think, the full-size truck market, it's not selling like it used to. It is absolutely not. Now, here is a surprise, though. And this is something that I would not have expected, not one bit, which is that gas SUVs are on the downturn. They are losing sales, and they are not doing well. Everything from especially General Motors in this category has seen a reduction in sales on everything from the Buick Enclave, Envision, to the Chevy Traverse, Blazer. The Suburban was even down, even though that's a bigger, more of a proper SUV. And I guess when we say SUVs here, when I mentioned that, I'm not talking about like your full body on frame stuff. I mean, most of the SUVs in this category are of the crossover variety. So not real SUVs, in my opinion. But that being said, they have previously been a sales success. You see crossovers all over the place. I mean, so much so BMW even made that ugly, nasty one that apparently sells really well. But what's interesting is, so we see these crossovers and these SUVs, these smaller SUVs, going down in sales. But conversely, we see the electric variants of these going up massively. For example, Nissan has the Ariya, which in Q2 went up 123%. Wow, that is a big jump. Ford Mustang Mach-E, which, is it really a Mustang? No, it's not. Last time I checked, the Mustang didn't have 4 doors, wasn't an SUV, and wasn't all-wheel drive. But here we are. Ford makes the thing, and they get to call it whatever they want. I'll criticize them for that. I'll praise them later on for some other things that they're doing. But the Mach-E, 47%. Hyundai Ioniq 5, 51% jump. Cadillac makes a thing called the Lyriq. I didn't know that. I bet you didn't know that. Well, I mean, I've actually seen them around, but I never think about that car. And that improved quite a bit, too. Now, trailing behind that, the Toyota BZ4X. Yeah, that one rolls off the tongue really easily. And it's, doppelganger, the Subaru Solterra. They saw increases, not as much, though. And I think that's just because they're not as competitive in terms of functionality and all of the above. But we've got Kia doing their stuff with an EV. Chevy's bringing a Blazer EV. Manufacturers are jumping on this bandwagon to get into the electric SUV, small SUV craze. And I have a theory as to why this is. Why are the gas ones not selling? Why are the electric ones selling so much? Is it because people are finally jumping on the EV bandwagon and have decided that it is the way of the future, which I don't think it is, by the way. If you listen to my show and if you listen on the radio a lot, you know my opinion of that. But the reason for this is because these are kind of mid-range price-wise. Okay, and I'm just going to throw some hypothetical numbers out. These aren't exact numbers for any model, but let's say, even some of these mid-size, smaller SUVs can get up there with options, $45,000, $50,000 even in some cases, and the EV ones certainly are expensive. So let's just imagine you've got a $50,000 gas one and a $60,000 EV one. Again, I'm just making up numbers to make my point here, and you can probably go along and see these numbers be fairly close in a lot of cases, but it's because of the tax credits. It is because of the subsidies and all of the above. You look at between, like, for example, here in Colorado, you look at the federal EV tax credit, combine that with the state tax credit, and the fact that on the federal side of things, you can now get that tax credit up front at the sale of the vehicle instead of waiting until the following year when you do your taxes to get that back. So combine that. Here in Colorado, we're looking at close to $12,000 in tax credit. So you've got that $60,000 EV, which suddenly becomes a $48,000 EV. And you're going to say, looking at that as a buyer who's looking at all the options and is not an enthusiast, bear in mind, a lot of these buyers are not like maybe you and me, enthusiasts, and they're looking at the options and they want the idea of maybe owning their first electric vehicle. They see people driving around in Teslas. They think electric cars seem and feel upmarket, and they're going to go ahead and they're going to buy that EV, and they're going to get that tax credit on there at suddenly $48,000. You're now under $50,000 on that vehicle. And that's what's going on here. This is absolutely a sales success right now, in part because of government intervention. Now, I have done a spiel, and we won't go into it here. We're talking about the market as a whole today. I've done an entire spiel on this show, on the radio, about why I think we should not be subsidizing these EVs. And I ruffled some feathers when I posted some clips of that online on YouTube, which, again, you can catch this show in addition to the podcast on YouTube and Rumble, and you can listen to the audio version on Spotify. But that got a lot of comments. That brought the Tesla lovers and the fanatics, the Elon army out of the woodwork to come attack me in the comments on that video, which was much appreciated. It fed the algorithm god, which then increased engagement and all of the above on that video. But that being said, people were mad when I said that. My point wasn't that we shouldn't cancel all of the subsidies all at once altogether. My point was, all right, why are we subsidizing just the EVs when there is plenty of other technology that is not being explored? You look at hybrid technology and things like that that aren't being explored, that in many cases can be more efficient. Now, I'm not talking about traditional gas drivetrain with a hybrid boost. I'm talking about something more akin to like your heavy equipment, your diesel electric stuff. You've got electric drive motors for the wheels, and you've got a small, efficient engine that runs at one constant RPM to maintain the current going to those electric motors. That has been around for like 100 years, and it's incredibly efficient for what it is. But we're not subsidizing that. We're not subsidizing research into anything else. We're just focusing on EVs as the only solution, pure battery electric. And I don't think for the people who say the goal of this is, the environment and this and that. If we're just subsidizing one thing, that clearly proves, and especially one thing that's not as clean as they say it is, that clearly proves that you're not about the environment on this. You're just about making money off of these subsidies in one way or another as a politician, in my eyes. So I digress. That's a whole thing. You can listen to that on the show. I go deeper into that idea. But anyway, let's get back to some of the other things in the car market, right? And I do think, like I was saying, those subsidies play a huge role right now in that. But let's look at the polar opposite of the EV spectrum. Ford. I called out Ford a minute ago for saying that their thing is their SUV thing is a Mustang. Again, they make it. I guess they can call it whatever they want. But no, Ford Mustang, the proper one, the legit one, has been doing great in sales. Not like 123% like the EVs are seeing, but instead of pulling back on sales, they have crept forward about 8%. Not a ton, but that's going forward still when everything else is going backwards in the double digits. So that is still good. And I think that's partially because when you're looking at the V8 sports car market, the muscle car market, Chevy killed the Camaro. Dodge killed the Challenger. Yeah, but there's a new one and it's an EV. No one cares. It's not rear wheel drive and it's not a V8 and it's not a manual transmission, which this is when, as an enthusiast now, I get to say things about this because this demographic, the people who are buying these are enthusiasts, and this is what they want. They want that V8 engine, they want that manual transmission, and they want that rear-wheel drive setup. They want that drivetrain. And currently, Ford with the Mustang, they're basically the only kid on the block now in this segment, and they are. And they're crushing it with the Mustang. So, that's one of those things that I think is, enthusiast cars are a little different. We have the commuter cars. We've got those EV crossovers, which, again, I hate crossovers and I hate EVs. It's a double hate on there. Does it cancel out that way? No, I don't. I don't think so. But that being said, we've got, those are your regular buyers. Those are your middle-aged parents. Those are, people starting families who want a car with a small back seat, but they don't want something big. They want an economy car. And that's who's buying that. Enthusiasts, though, are buying these Mustangs. It's an entirely different segment for a different reason. And Ford, late last year, they came out committing to the V8 platform, saying that we are going to manufacture a V8 in the Mustang for as long as possible, no matter what it takes. And I commend them for that. And it clearly works. Now, Mustang is also the only true car that Ford sells. Everything else is either an SUV or a pickup truck. And they know that. And they're selling great. They're investing in this platform. I mean, obviously, the new Mustang Dark Horse is a tremendously cool vehicle. And I'm actually seeing them out on the roads pretty often. And the new generation of Mustang as a whole, I should say. But that being said, they're accessible. Yeah, they're still expensive. They're a toy. They're usually not your only car. They're a second car type of purchase still. But they're there. People are buying them. And that's something that can't be said for Dodge or Chevy right now. So they better listen up. And I don't think they will. I think their brand culture and their brand identity is deliberately being shifted away from that. And that's too bad. Ford's going to capitalize on it. And Ford right now has my win for the enthusiast vote there. So now wrapping this up, we also saw an increase in economy cars. And that, I think, things like the Chevy Trax, the Toyota Corolla Cross, the Mazda CX-30. Okay, I could keep going. These are all boring, completely uninteresting, unremarkable cars, but they are economy cars and they're gas-powered. They have also seen a rise, again, in the double digits here going into 2024, wrapping up Q2 of 2024. So, and imagine this, even the Mitsubishi Mirage, like that has seen a sales increase, which is amazing. So what this means, I think in summary, what I'm getting at with all of this is that the car market is somewhat emblematic of the economy as a whole. I think as inflation rises and people tighten their belts still on everything from groceries to home purchases to things like vehicles, we're seeing utilitarian stuff. Obviously, your economy cars, like I was just saying, going up. People want to save on gas. They still got to get to work. They still got to get the kids to school. Mid-sized trucks, not as big as the full size, a little better on gas, still practical for a family who maybe does some weekend activities, or especially for, single folks who've got to load some dirt bikes up and just hit the trails on the weekend. Yes, I'm picking on you, and I'm picking on you for being single, because if you're doing that, you're single, definitely. So ask me how I know. But, that is what we're seeing. And then the boost in electric econo boxes, that's what they are. They are small crossovers that are electric. Those have seen a huge increase too, because again, I think that is solely because of the government subsidies going into those. And when you're cross-shopping the gas version versus that one, and you've never had an EV, and maybe it works for your use case. Maybe it totally does work for your use case. I believe with EVs, you should be able to buy what you want. Buy what works for you. That is incredibly important in my opinion. So, I don't think they should be telling us what we can and can't buy. And if you want to buy that EV crossover, if it tickles your fancy, please go for it, buy it, make yourself happy with it. So, but I think we're looking at the car market as sort of a reflection of the economy here in 2024 and people's tastes with that. And that's one reason why I think these, electric, high performance electric luxury vehicles, think your higher trim Teslas, your Lucids, your things like that, they're going to be around, but look, man, your regular buying audience is not going to be cross-shopping, a Nissan Leaf with one of those. Let me just say that. So anyway, there you go. That is my take on the car market as a whole here. Again, thank you to Caleb Miller, Car and Driver, for putting these stats together. And you know what? If you want to comment on your thoughts on this, let me know what you think. If you think I'm entirely wrong about the whole thing, if you like crossovers and you like EVs and you like EVs that are crossovers and you think I'm a horrible person, go ahead and let me know and comment below on that. And if you're new to the show here, check out the radio show and the podcast. The radio show becomes a podcast every single week on Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, and you can catch it here on YouTube too, which has a new podcasts page. And if you're a longtime podcast listener, consider subscribing to the YouTube channel so you get more of this as well. I'll talk to you next week on the radio show.